Nathan Crawford? Nathan, get in Discord.
What?
Nathan. Mr. Crawford. Get in Discord. I don't know if the Discord link is like... Wait, what? Yeah, dude! Okay, so this is I'm about to explain it, but it's a live Flesh and Blood call-in show. If you show up in the Discord, we will put you on to give a spicy take. Nathan, I know you have spicy takes. You gave a spicy take, didn't you?
Did he give a Twitter
spicy
take?
Did he respond to me with a spicy take? Maybe not. I know the other Crawford did. Mr. Taylor.
Oh, I assume.
Yes.
Every take Taylor has is spicy.
Taylor is spicy. What was
Taylor
his spicy take? His take was banned Tunic. Never mind. I don't want to bring him on. Change my mind.
Ooh. Ooh.
All right, I'm gonna start it. All right, if you're ready.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Pit Against, a live Flesh and Blood call-in show. I'm joined by my constant co-host, Kevin Smurf Murphy. Kevin, what's up?
Yo, how are you doing, man?
How's it going? Okay, now Pit Against is a live call-in show. If you'd like to be on and talk to us about your spicy takes, join the Pit Against Discord by clicking the link that's somewhere below us. Then join the calls, mute your mic, put a hot take in the topics, and then we will drag you on here and you will literally be talking to us live. Cool. Anything else? Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Phil, I'm gonna bring. I guess we didn't discuss that. Phil, I'm gonna bring in Theo while you talk to the audience.
About what?
I'm a Dragon Man. Theo, if you're ready, you better be ready. Theo.
On me and shit. What the
fuck? Caller, what's your name and where are you from?
Hi, this is the first time. My name's Theo, and I'm calling in from Detroit.
Oh, that's amazing. I heard Detroit's a beautiful city. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Can we talk about how Flesh and Blood players are way too nice?
That's an interesting take. Do you want to elaborate on that for us?
Okay, so Flesh and Blood players, right? Like,
I've heard of them.
Perfect. Yeah, we're awesome. First of all, as a community, like, before we get too far away, that shit that happened last week, right? That was awesome. That was us being a nice community sticking together.
Yeah.
But we are too nice as players.
What was the thing that happened last week for people who might not remember?
There was a troll. I hope.
Oh yes.
Yeah, there was a troll.
Twitter troll.
Yep, and if you have ever seen that gif of Dragon Ball Z where he just wipes away, I think it's Raditz. Is it Raditz or Piccolo that gets wiped away?
Just poof.
I don't know. I'm a nerd. We're getting away from it. Anyways, you know, I'm a level 1 judge, right?
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of times where people have come up to me and been like, "Hey, we didn't want to call you. I didn't want to call you over and help with a call because my opponent just said this. This is how this works. Is this how that works?" And I go, "No, that is completely wrong." And it's gotten so bad that like last week or 2 weeks ago at Pittsburgh, somebody ended up getting DQ'd.
Yes.
Because they were lying to people about a card interaction. Okay? And this could have just been easily solved had their opponent just been like, "Judge, can you help me out?"
Yep.
You know? Like,
no, I think I kind of get where you're coming from with FAB players being too nice. I for sure let opponents have things that they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
At Calling Vegas that ran alongside Nats, I let 2 Dromai players have snaps when they both skipped the window.
Yeah.
I knew what was happening and I figured they were snapsing and I did not skip the window. I specifically said no blocks or block 5. And they both went to do the next thing and skipped snaps entirely. And I let both of them have it, and I honestly probably shouldn't have.
It'll cost you games.
It very well could have. It very well could have cost me one of those games.
Yep.
But like it at the same time, like and I want to make a distinction here between like obviously like armory stuff and like calling level stuff.
Yeah. You can kind of tell where I'm going with this. This isn't like armory night or even snaps to an extent. I'm talking rule sharking.
Sure. Yeah. Like when someone is like, you can tell someone is like, you think someone might be a little bit shady. Like,
yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, I'm going to argue that other side of the take. FAB players are nice, and that's a good thing, right? So one thing that I try to do every time I sit down at a table, even if I know the person previously and might not have a great relationship with them, assume honest intent. You should assume everyone's sitting down at the table to play. What's the quote? To play a great game, right? So I think this isn't something that we should be like being, scared of, or, it's something maybe we should keep in the back of our minds, but most of the time, like 95%, more than that, interactions you're going to have playing Flesh and Blood, no one's trying to like force a win by sharking or cheating or something like that. And we shouldn't necessarily assume every time something doesn't work out our way, maybe it is sharking or cheating. Not that anyone is. And also to that, we're all adults. We're actual adults. Like, we're big kids, right? And so one reason that the Flesh and Blood community I think is so great is we have an average older player base. Our player base is older than average, I think. Yeah, right?
I agree with that.
We're more mature, and with that comes just a respect for each other and for the game that we're playing. And so I don't think that Flesh and Blood players are too nice. I think it's just Flesh and Blood players are pleasantly nice. I've played other games where it was just
we all
had
played
problems.
Yeah, we all played Yu-Gi-Oh.
Calling him out. Oh yeah, Kevin didn't.
Oh, like you view it as maturity, not being too nice.
Yeah. I think there's definitely instances where new players come into the game and they don't know what to do when something weird happens. But yeah.
Well, that's why we start out with every event. Hey, if you need to call a judge, show me how to do it. Raise your hand, call a judge. That's all you need to do. And if you're confused about something, right? Like, during the game, I think it's best that players play to their highest capability because it provides the best enjoyment. I don't want to have I don't think anybody wants to have feelings later on of like, oh man, I let my opponent have that, and like that kind of cost me the win. Or even if like the opponent, if they got something given to them because their opponent was just being good about it, like that kind of, you know what I mean? Like, that creates a weird feeling. And like, I'm strictly talking about the event. Like, I wouldn't trade the outside of the card game, our Flesh and Blood community and our interactions for anything. But during the game, it's a different scenario.
I guess that makes sense.
I'll agree with that. Like, I separating the competition and everything that happens outside of it is something that, like, if we're actually like looking at our community and like, especially like what you talked about with like an older player base, like, we should be mature enough to be able to separate those things.
Ruv120 says we're all adults, actually big kids. They're quoting me. He says, "Speak for yourself. I'm a Toys R Us kid."
Yeah, Lucas, we know.
Tell him to show up.
That's Lucas Bannigan. He is a Bravo main, and he's he can't help but play big dumb guardian numbers.
The only other thing I would say, and this is to your point, which is to any new players out there or any fresh players or players with anxiety or anything like that, if you're at a big event of any kind or a small event or an armory or anything, the tagline is, judges, we're here to help. Right? Like the whole point is to help make the games go smoothly and clarify game interactions and tournament procedures and all that good stuff. Judges are nothing but good. They're not cops. They're not cops.
We're not cops.
They're not cops.
Yeah, I'm a judge. Okay, I couldn't be a cop.
Yeah,
not true for me, but true for me.
Like I had like this. This is something that like I actually like. I genuinely do agree with, and it's something that I've been like trying to be less like lax on in these kind of events. And I actually had a moment this weekend at the Realm 20K. Round 3, I'm 1-1, and I get paired against Mara, who is a local of mine. She's a dear friend. And we're going through our game.
Very great player right now.
Yes, a fantastic player. But we're going through our game, and she has a turn towards the very end where she doesn't play a red card to start the turn, but she plays Flame Call. And she goes to search Phoenix Flame when it's not a legal search. It's not that the effect isn't live. But she literally played Flame Call the turn before. So Phoenix Flame was literally the bottom card of her deck. So like nothing happens, but neither of us know what to do because she'd gone and searched it and started shuffling. And it's just kind of like, I don't know what to do. I'm not just going to let, like, when I say I'm not just going to let this go, it's not me trying to nitpick. It's me being like, I don't know what the answer actually is. And this is a 20K event. This is a calling level event.
This is real. This isn't prep.
I'm going to have to call a judge on this because I don't know what the proper solution is.
What was the solution?
Literally, there was nothing that could be done. It was finish shuffling. Phoenix Flame goes back on the bottom of the deck where it was. That's it. Because that's all that could be done once the shuffle had started. And everything had been shuffled the turn before. So everything else was randomized except for any other cards that had been pitched on that previous turn.
Oh, that's
very narrow. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. Like you guys got lucky because like if that had happened,
If this was like if it had been like 10, 15 cards pitched,
is not good.
Yes. Yeah.
Shuffling error warning.
No. Oh my. Yeah, like that's literally what it was, and it was just kind of like I just didn't know what to do. Yeah, and I wasn't like trying to like snipe her on anything. It was just like there's a legitimate mistake here, and this is an event where I'm not going to just say we can pass on this. I'm going to let a third party decide this.
Yeah, and was the judge scary when he came over?
No.
Did he yell?
Was he mean to you?
Well, it wasn't me, so they couldn't have been mean. You know, I wasn't there, but you know,
and
fair.
Mara, of course, was like on the same page. She was like, "I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what to do. This mistake is on me." Like, that's it. And like, that's what happens. Like when that's the level of players. Actually, that's where you want the players to be almost too nice of being like, "I made the mistake." It is what it is.
Yeah.
But like that's a case where players should call a judge. They should not just look at that and be like, "No, you're fine, whatever, let it pass."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out? Like our Patreon or Kevin's Twitch stream?
Yeah, no, I got nothing like that. I want to go eat.
No. Okay. Thank you so much for calling. We're going to bring in the next guy. Bye.
Later, boys.
All right. That was pretty good. Anything else you wanted to say to that? Nothing?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You want to bring in the Mad Hatter? Do you know which...
When he posted that the first time, I was a little like... Not 100% sure what you mean, but I think I know what you mean.
He DM'd me directly afterwards because I was or no, I DM'd him and I was like, what are you trying to get at? And then he told me what he was trying to get at. And I was like, that tracks. That's fine. That's fine. That passes. Okay. We'll bring in the Mad Hatter. Do you know which take you want from him? He put 2 in.
I did not look at the split of those.
Okay.
Moaning about power level of Guardian. Oh, release internal lists for heroes. Ooh,
Okay, go
either
to the
one.
waiting room because I'm the one streaming. Go to the waiting room, make sure he's like there, like he exists,
Cool.
instead of like the last one where, and I'll talk to
Yep.
the air. Instead of like the last one where he we weren't sure whether or not he was there or not, and he was talking to his family or whatever. Currently, I am the only one here, and if y'all want to be here, all you got to do is come over to the Twitch channel at twitch.tv/whatever. And this also didn't work. Kevin, stream again. There we
There
go.
it is.
All right, Mad Hatter. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, yeah, my name's Lachlan. I'm from Adelaide in Australia, which is pretty full on.
That's
Thanks for
super
having me on.
cool. No, it's great. It's great. What? Say your name again for me.
Lachlan.
Lachlan. That's really cool. What do you want to talk
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
Or Kevin, which did you want him to talk about?
Either.
Either? Okay, pick one. Which one you're most passionate about?
Oh, me or Kevin?
You.
You.
Oh, I think I'm actually at the moment I'm more passionate about the Guardian one.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, go
yeah.
ahead. Fine, go ahead.
The other one's a bit more interesting, but so I had a thing where my mate that I play against a lot, he plays a lot of Guardian, right? And I want to play fatigue, proactive fatigue decks. And I understand some people are going to be like, oh, well, Guardian can be played in a fatigue way. I get that. My issue is that you have Guardian is going to be this fundamentally strong powerhouse of a class because all their resource cards are like inherently good. And then also you pair that with a weapon that can swing for 4 or 6. So I can build a deck that's designed around fatigue mechanics and all the new fatigue cards in FaB. And I feel like I'm just losing out on a card by card value to just some guy with a hammer that hasn't changed anything about their deck.
Running
I don't know,
nothing
maybe I
but
might
the
be
mono blue
misunderstanding
deck.
something, but like, and I get that some people want to play that way. It's fine. It just feels strange that, and I know people are going to be like, "That's okay." Like, some classes can have bad matchups. I get that too, but like,
Yeah.
this just does what I'm trying to do.
And you're right. Someone is going to say that in about 5 seconds. But go ahead.
And it's
Sweet.
going to be William.
Actually, Kevin, do you have anything else you want to say? I'm going to argue against it. So, do you have anything else you want to say for it?
Ooh.
So
I feel seen.
you're saying it's somewhat of a problem or something that they have to like balance around just the way Guardian weapons work and the quality of their blues and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think the quality of the blues are just a little too high. The thing that got me onto it was I can't remember where it was, but Nick Butcher was talking about making a Guardian deck sometime, and he was saying that his talk got me thinking about like, oh wait, yeah, the Guardian blues are just always good. So you either have like a couple of sprinkling of reds for better turns, and at worst, you're just swinging in a hammer that takes more than a card, and you don't lose any cards from your deck.
Yeah. So if I recall correctly, he was talking about his post Singapore win earlier this year
cool.
when he played Oldhim.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you have a brain that holds memories and stuff, because I was like, what the frick?
He was talking about Oldhim, and he was also talking about Icelander, where just the quality of your blues is so important for a deck, or I guess in particular your resource cards. And this is something that has actually transferred over into Dromai very well. In addition, because all of your resource cards are your reds.
Yeah, I was about to say all your cards are blue.
Yeah.
I mean red.
Yeah, all of your resource cards are red. Like
all his cards are yellow.
Yeah, which are just the cards he wants to run anyways.
Yeah.
And he can curve well off a yellow right now, which is why you saw Bolton do relatively well. Like the deck got refined a good bit, and he went there. And it's like it is like Guardian just curving off blues, and all the Guardian blues being really good. They're all poppers for Illusionist matchups. They're all block 3s. Rouse the Ancients is absolutely insane.
It's fine.
It's insane. 3 for 7 go again. Come on.
It's pretty good.
As a blue,
pretty good.
Yeah, the only thing that it doesn't have going for it is it's a 2-block. Like that's literally it.
Legit.
It's like, oh no, one less block. Oh no.
Yeah. But like decks, like I ran Dromai this weekend, and in most matchups, I was literally just running 60 reds, like 0 blues. I ran no passing mirages into Bravo.
That's
How many
full
Kanos
on.
did you play?
1.
Wow. How'd that go?
And I won it.
Let's go.
Nice.
All right.
Like it's like it is an issue that LSS does have to tackle, and I think they've done an all right job of it.
Okay. So I'm gonna give one more thing for you, and then I'm gonna hard
Yeah.
against you. So one thing for you is James White is burned in my brain. James White did say in an interview that if he had to take back, someone asked, I think it had to be Flake, right? The host of Flesh and Blood. He had to have said it. He was like,
PP2.
He was like, if you could take back a card, what would you take? And James White snap was like, Thunderquake and Macho Grande. He was just immediately like, those 2 cards.
Yep.
I wouldn't have printed them. And it's like, frick. They're
like,
the best cards.
I kind of like see that. I agree with that.
Oh
like
my
they are
gosh.
just number wise, they're just good for blues and for your game plan. And with Anathos, both Anathos and Titan's Fist, which became the weapon of choice for Oldhim, like
so good.
They're just numerically good cards. When your resource cards are that good, your deck becomes too flexible.
Okay, so now I have 2 points on why that doesn't matter. 1, get the other Crawford in here too. He's typing in chat. All right, and he's typing in nonsense. Okay, so number 1, we just talked about how Dromai's pitch cards are also her play cards, and for Bolton, his pitch cards are also his play cards. And for the upcoming Kasai, she's gonna run no blues, maybe. Maybe we'll find out. Anyways, that's already 2 other entire classes and heroes that all their playable cards are also their pitches, and so it's like, if the problem is all your pitches are also all your playables, then your deck is too consistent. There's already 2 other classes and heroes that do that. The other point is, I think Guardian's main thing about Guardian, like what makes Guardian is actually that like what they have going for them, what says this is a Guardian is they have an inherent win condition out of the gate. That is just what the class is built around. It's, I have a hammer.
Blue block
it swings 4. Yeah, blue block. This is my win condition. I don't have to have any certain cards in my decks other than blue block 3s. That is it. And that is what makes the class the class. In the same respect, they hard lose to actually even more late game strats, right? Dash when she's got all her items. Dromai if she reaches a certain critical mass of dragons. Prism if she gets 2 ores out every single turn. There are later game conditions. Kasai when she makes freaking an entire army
that doesn't have Phantasm.
Does it cost X? Does it cost X as well, or is it just you pay an amount and you get rid of gold?
I think you have to pay your gold. I think you have to pay your gold.
Is the X just gold?
I'm gonna double check real quick. It is 0 cost. Destroy
oh my
X
gosh!
Gold you control.
She just makes 50 gold and then summons an actual army. Somebody needs to bring over the other deck box of tokens, and then you just play all of them out. And then Guardian's just like, oh, okay. You swing the weapon once, and then you can do 3 with Gogan, 3 with Gogan, 3 with Gogan, 3 with Gogan, 3 with Gogan. And there's
1 resource, but yes,
for 1 resource, and you have to have the weapon of Gogan. But like, holy frick! It's like
So. Like Guardian is what they gave, is the end game state that they gave for Welcome to Wraith. Like that is just it. It was their first like late game end game state.
This is what happens when the game goes too late.
Yes, like we're going to give one class some like slightly better inevitability, and the trade-off is their hands are on average going to be lower value than the ninja hands, than the warrior hands, than the brute, and then like brute can also be really disruptive and target the guardians. Like WTR as a set is probably
so
really
good.
well balanced.
So like, good, makes me excited for heavy hitters. Holy frick!
It's super well balanced, and the piece that like made all of this weird with like Guardian being this consistent is Prism. It's Illusionist, because Prism basically said I don't care about your hammer. It's irrelevant. I play the game better. I play the long game better than you do. That's it. End of game. Like, end of story. Like Prism is what kept Guardian in check, and then Prism disappeared because she was busted. And then Oldham and Bravo are still there doing Guardian things, but Dromai has a harder time keeping Guardian in check than Prism did. So you don't end up with that triangle of aggro decks beat Illusionist, Illusionist beats Guardian, Guardian beats aggro decks. Because that was the triangle before.
Yeah.
And so now it just feels...
Oh, no, go for it.
So like you end up with like a weird balance of like Dromai's trying to deal with both the aggro and the Guardian because Guardian's not nearly as one-sided as the Prism Guardian matchup was.
Yeah.
So like the
Guardian has game plans into Dromai.
Yes. Like it is like Prism Guardian was just not balanced. And it might have been it honestly might have been it was probably unhealthy for the game. But Dromai is no longer that check, so now it just feels like Guardian is super consistent, has the long game, and then easiest way for a Guardian to get 13 is to block with 3 cards. Yeah. And then it's like then you're like Guardian is just the stat check. It is a version of a stat check deck. There are 2 stat check decks. One is Guardian. You have to be able to do more than 13 points of value on a turn. And the other is FaB, where you have to be able to out-aggro FaB.
Yeah.
So... Yeah. Guardian is, of course, a necessary piece of the game. It is.
Yeah.
But it is somewhat there. This is part of, I think, the growing pain. Like the way it feels right now with Bravo is part of the growing pains of them figuring out where that third leg of the triangle is between aggro, anti-Guardian, and Guardian, which they've deemed Illusionist for anti-Guardian.
I live in hope because we come from like sort of what you were saying with the WTR stuff and looking at Prism and Guardian. Like Guardian can feel a little bit rough on some of the value decks at the moment, but we actually haven't seen what Guardian looks like since they've changed. Because you can feel from like Uprising onwards, the design of the heroes and the identities are changing. So we don't actually know what it looks like if they don't give Guardian this sort of like just fundamental setup. So I'm very keen to see where they go in the next set because I think it's going to be this balance of how do you give people this feeling that they want without just printing more stuff that like enables a win con that they already have.
Yeah, I actually have an interesting point to this, which is James White has routinely said that one thing with the Living Legend system is it's supposed to give a breather on the meta. We've always had Bravo, and it could be in the case. I'm a long-term visionist for Flesh and Blood. Imagine 3 years from now, I have a beard. Bravo is LL'd, and one of those 2 things can't be true. So, imagine, okay, whatever our new brutes are, or our new Guardians are, get LL'd. Bravo gets LL'd. They don't print another Oldham, or he pulls another Starfo treatment. We just could have like 4 months of no Guardian. That could just happen. We've had months where we didn't have certain classes. Like when Prism LL'd before we got Dromai.
Like we have no ice right now?
We have no ice right now. Yes, we could run into a meta without Guardian. And what an interesting world it will be, and an emotional roller coaster for me. But I don't know. It could happen in the future. That's a long ways off, but you know.
Yeah, like I don't want to rag on Guardian too hard. I think it's because I've played against it a lot because my mate is like was the massive start of the game on Oldham, then was a massive Oldham stand and switched to Bravo. So I get that it feels an important part, but it's making sure that it's how do you give it this, like players want to play with it having the level of consistency that it does, but is it too consistent so that it pushes some decks where they're moving in this sort of like, hey, you can play whatever that does fatigue mechanics, and then you kind of sit there and go, well, I would rather just have a better matchup into some other heroes and not have to change my deck at all.
Yeah. Like the game is Guardian ends up in a weird spot just because also like one of the other checks I guess on Bravo and Guardian was Icelander. So
Yeah, because they can push value, like pushing
Yeah.
value between the turns that Bravo can't
Yeah,
necessarily do as nicely.
Yep. But also, like, I think what you're saying, like, you have a lot of exposure to Guardian just because that's what your friend plays a lot. Like, I definitely had a much higher opinion of Dromai in this meta than I had a slightly higher opinion of Dromai in this meta than I should have, because Mara is a local.
Yeah.
Like, Flesh and Blood is definitely influenced by the scene that you're in, and you're like, because like then I go to. It's also really interesting because then you go to like the Realm 20K, and the most represented hero was Bravo at 17 out of 115.
Wow.
Was that right?
It was only 15%, I think.
No way. I didn't know that was the stat. That's crazy.
Like, that is actually very low for the most represented hero or deck for a tournament. For like a $20,000 prize pool tournament.
Holy
like,
frick. Yeah, that is impressive.
Actually crazy.
That's quite low. Yeah.
So like, I remind myself that I have to be careful that like any ideas that I have about the meta are going to be like slightly like inbred, just based on like whatever testing I'm doing, what I'm seeing at armories. Like,
we gotta get a new word for this. We gotta get a new word for this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, new word for that. New word. Where's my thesaurus? Where's my thesaurus? Holy frick.
They're gonna be echo chambered.
Echo chambered. I'll take that every day. Echo chambered.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right.
We're not gonna have inbred testing groups.
It's cool though, like, to see the difference between this, like, it's a good point because you get your local scene or even your regional scene, but then to expand that to a larger stage, it's really interesting for someone who plays over in APAC to look at how we tend to be on a lot more of the defensive side here, and then we'll go look at people that play like the regional meta in Europe or the regional meta in the US, and it's just
Americans are so aggressive. Americans are just like full sent.
We have a local armory where we come in and someone will say to me every time, "Oh, did you watch like whatever event it was somewhere on the other side of the world? Why doesn't anyone know how to block dash? Dash shouldn't be winning this." Like,
that's funny.
Yeah, I remember watching Calling Melbourne and be like, "Oh God, this Icelander doesn't know how to play against Arachne." But it's because I have an Arachne player in my local scene that I've played like a dozen games against, so like I know how to play that matchup. Like, this game is so I trust LSS on like all this design stuff. Like, I'm fully willing to trust them on this. They know it better than I do because it is so dependent on like what I've played against. And like, yes, Guardian is a problem, but I have for sure had times where it's just like I was testing Icelander into Olden before like PT3, and like I just was like, I couldn't beat Mara playing Olden. Like, that's a problem. And I was like, all right, I don't know what to do. Can you just message like Tarek or Dagan or somebody? Like, what do you hate to see as an Olden player in the Icelander matchup?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so, the game, like, it comes down to like, the game is just ludicrously deep.
It's so complex. Like this, spending this year where I've like tried to just go more into depth, that it is insane the level of like the layers for everything, like you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like Guardian is going to be the most consistent class, but like it comes down to like their resource cards are their pitch cards, they're their attack cards. Dromai is doing something very similar. Like the list I ran in the 20K felt so good. Like, yeah, like you and Mara, if you were ever on the same class, would be 100% on the same page the entire time, William.
I'm sure of it.
Like, it's
I just want the thing. I just want the deck to do the thing, and I don't want it to argue with me. I want it to shut up and play the game.
Yes.
I started the game, and so when I started Flesh and Blood, someone was like, "Okay, so this thing called arcane damage, it's unblockable," and I was like, oh, "Okay, that's it. I'll just play Runeblade." And then I played Runeblade, and then about a year in, I'm just like, "I'm not losing, you're losing," and I'm yelling at the deck. And no, it was me. In hindsight, it was 100% me, actually. Yeah. Right? Putting red slogism. Don't do that. Don't play that card. Just don't.
Yeah.
Into Oldham.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I hope we have in some way inspired you to maybe you sit down with your mate and you're like, hey, swap decks for a day, for an afternoon.
Yeah, give it a go.
Give it a go. Give it a change. All right. Guardian's not that awful, and I don't think it's awful for the meta at all. So, well, thank you for the call. Is there anything you want to shout out?
Thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm keen to see where it goes in heavy hitters. Shout outs. I mean, I watched before. I've got to shout out Kevin's stream, right? Is that what I
Yes,
heard?
you have to shout out Kevin's stream or our Patreon.
Or your Patreon. I'll shout out your Patreon too.
Thank you.
I want to say again, thank you for having me on, because I guess I've never done something like this before. I could shout out my own Twitter, I guess.
Please shout out your Twitter.
Okay. So I'm at Mad Hatter Media on Twitter. So MADD and then Hatter Media, and I post FaB memes a lot, and have started like writing articles because I was like, I started this year going, I'm gonna not be a full memer at my locals. I'm gonna make memes online and write up a like the journey of being like a numpty who is playing their first TCG and seeing how that progression goes to like what you'll learn throughout the game. So if you're interested in that, I want to give us a follow on Twitter, but I'm so beyond excited. This is my first thing that I got asked to come on and be part of in the content sphere. So
absolutely.
I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity, and I'm keen to see where the show goes. I think it's a really cool concept.
Oh, thank you. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday until every Tuesday.
That sounds like a plan.
as many as possible.
As many as possible. We're going to do this as often as we can. Thank you so much for being on. We'll catch you next time.
No, thanks for having me on. It was great to chat with you guys. All right, we'll catch you later, guys.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
All right. While we're waiting for Crawford and Crawford to do their thing, do you want to go over this take we found on Twitter?
Form their LLC? Sure.
Crawford and Crawford attorneys at Flesh and Blood. So I asked, what's your spiciest Flesh and Blood take? And it kind of popped the frick off on Twitter. And so we're going to just pull one while we're waiting for a caller. This one's by Marowak. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, by Marowak or at Zorowak? I don't know. I can't read. They said,
not sure.
They said, people that are suddenly surprised about how close their hero is to LL have been sleeping on how well their hero has been doing. Heroes that consistently top 8 every event will never be safe to begin with. Fair enough. I've heard a lot of this take lately.
Yeah, I'm going to specifically at the Draw My players.
At you.
For this one. Yeah, well, not necessarily at me. I anticipated Dromai getting a large spike with Tome of Imperial Flame coming out. Dromai had been doing well. Like, she'd been a top 3, 4, 5 hero since at least Baltimore.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. And then it's like, your hero dodged 200 LL points by one game.
True, actually.
Like,
very true.
You know how do you act like you put 2 in the top 8. You were the second most represented hero at PT Baltimore. Like, your hero's good. 180 LL points in about a year was not a lot. And I say this as an Icelander main.
Yeah. All right,
my hero was stupidly good. Like,
so I'm going to argue not necessarily their take, but I'm going to argue the other side of their take for a little bit. And it's people complaining about their heroes LLing. I think the simple thing is some of these heroes have been around for a while, and also we just got the new update to how many LL points we get at events, how often we're getting LL updated, and so when 4 Blitz heroes disappear in a matter of weeks, it becomes a little shocking, right?
Sure. Okay.
How's this? I guess maybe not Blitz, but let's say for all formats, the last 4 heroes to go, what time frame did those 4 heroes fall off in? Like, how long did it take 4 heroes to disappear?
So the last 4 heroes that have rotated, Chain had been out since 2020
A
was
while.
Monarch.
Yes.
Chain was like Monarch. Kano is Arcane Rising. Kasai is Crucible. Ira is the beginning of the game.
Yeah, Ira's been, she's been here forever. And so in that respect, it's like
Ira is the beginning of the game. The fastest one that we've had recently is Icelander, which is about 18 months, just shy of 18 months, I think she lasted, which is admittedly a little bit quicker than I would like heroes to go. But Icelander was also very powerful. Her hero ability was fundamentally very good, as we addressed in the last bit. Your blue cards being your playables, your resource cards being your playables is also just, you're going to be a good hero. Sorry.
True.
Also, you get a free action point every turn. You're going to be a good hero. They literally stapled that on Chain. They took the hero ability from Chain, put it on Icelander, and then said, we'll also give you a Frostbite for it.
I'm just looking up when, because I think it was 2021 was Monarch.
Early 21?
May 2021. So...
Icelander's math was insane for Blitz. 100%. Icelander was stupid for Blitz.
Yeah, Icelander...
It was degenerate.
It was good in Blitz. But, okay, so back to the point, though. Like, all these heroes LLing all at once is a little bit of like a shock.
Yes, it is.
It's an absolute flashbang of heroes disappearing.
They quadrupled the amount of points that heroes got in Blitz.
Yeah.
And it's because they weren't running Blitz callings, they weren't running Blitz battle hardens to accelerate any of those heroes. They were only running skirmishes, basically. So they went from 1 point per skirmish to 4 points per skirmish. Of course, stuff is going to rotate faster, and it's because all of these heroes are the CC heroes that are just busted. Like, it's Kano. Kano's going to be really heckin' good in Blitz when someone starts at 20 health. Do you know how many bans that guy has in Blitz? It's like 6 cards are banned.
So many. But like, where was I going with that?
I don't.
Is it too fast now? Right? Okay, so let's say it was too slow. We were not losing heroes as fast as we should have been. Are we making up for it now? Does it need to be changed later so that it slows back down to like a middling range between what it was and what it is?
I think it will need to be changed later for both CC and Blitz.
Okay.
I think they will need to slow down a little bit. I think this is them pushing the 1.0 heroes out.
Yep.
And this is them pushing Lexi out. This is them pushing Dromai out. This is them pushing Icelander out. And they're going to slow back down once the uprising set. Like, FaB will probably still be there just because he doesn't have stubbies and He also doesn't have pouncing links in Blitz. So he's all right. He's allowed to exist in that current state. Because 0 for 3 go again is not actually fundamentally above rate. I would be amazed if it wasn't set back to 2 per skirmish and per PQ and RTN win at some point. That will be post Dromai rotating though. So it is faster than people are used to. Nobody should be surprised though for the rate at which heroes are earning LL points.
People are surprised though, because some people
they're not surprised. They're mad.
Well, yes,
that's a different thing.
They could be both, right? So it's like, let's say
they shouldn't be surprised.
Let's say
if they're upset. Go ahead.
They're surprised at their own fault, right? They're a brand new player, and they don't know that the hero's been out for 3 years.
Yes, sure.
Absolutely,
absolutely,
which matters. That matters, right?
Yes,
and so this should be like, And it is. We're learning how to communicate these things, but like
Sure.
it needs to be very clearly communicated. This hero has been out for years, and you've just started. I mean, it's gonna go. So, someone buys a hacking round the table box, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Man, this hero actually punches people instead of
There's an
giving each
Ira
other
deck in it."
hugs." Yeah. So
Yeah.
Ira seems super cool. I'll try Ira, and it was pseudo marketed as the hero from round the table to go straight
Yes.
into Blitz. Like, this is, you want to try Blitz, well, take this deck that you already have and add a little more fluff to it, or just bring it straight to an armory. It is
Yeah.
Blitz legal. Clash commoner, not commoner. Clash legal,
Not
probably.
Not quite. They put a couple Majestics in each of those decks for around the table. But like, I understand that part of it. I do. But and I feel like that's just, if you're a new player and you're used to TCGs, like whether or not you're used to TCGs also comes into this, because like TCGs have some form of rotation. And if there's like, I'd almost be like, I'm going to ask the question of, is this too fast for if you are trying to get new players into your game? Like a hero rotating.
Yeah.
Like, how fast does a hero rotate? How fast does a deck rotate out and then come back?
It's interesting. Yeah,
concern
it's interesting
for a new player.
Yeah,
like,
it is interesting.
Like if you're addressing the new player question for this, that's where that actually should be. Because if you're coming
also
into TCGs, it's something to explain of like, these things do rotate out, and you have to be okay with that. And when you choose the deck that you're trying to get into the game with, that is something to consider. But at the same time, people shouldn't be encouraging the new players to go try out Kano and Blitz when he's 2 weeks from probably LLing, because the experienced players can see that.
Yeah. I guess it would be kind of weird. Well, I want to say it would be weird if you were in like a local meta where everyone's relatively new, but also at that point, then you should all be learning together, and even still, it doesn't necessarily hold.
I don't think so.
So let's go back. I'm going to read the take one more time. It was oh, they were arguing basically on the same side that we are arguing, which is that people are suddenly surprised about how close their hero is to LLing. They've just been sleeping on their hero, on what their hero has been doing, especially the good decks. The good decks have just been good.
Like I said, Dromai has been top 8ing stuff for months, and then it gets Tome of Imperial Flame, and like it gains 400 points. Like,
so thank you,
more points than people think. But
true. Thank you, Marowak, for the response. I'm going to send you a message on Twitter because clearly you're not here right now. And then we're going to go grab a Crawford, or you're going to go grab a Crawford, and I'm going to talk about how. No, go ahead. And the Armpit said earlier when I was talking about my lack of ability to grow a beard, he talked about Minix. Minox. It's a hair growth formula for my beard that I don't have. Maybe I might do that. We'll see. I don't. Well, probably not. The shaven look, it looks fine. Wife likes it. I think that's all that matters. But also at first when he put it in there, he said, it's called Minix, LOL, and I thought he was, and then later he was referring to something else. He was referring to what looks like the Guardian in the key art for the new set Heavy Hitters. The guy who's all in all gold, and then I thought he was telling me that Minix was the guy in gold. That is not his name. That is a hair growth formula. All right. How's Nathan doing?
Does not have permissions to unmute in the calls.
No, he doesn't have permission to unmute in the calls.
Oh,
we drag him in here.
To waiting room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they're gone again. He's gonna come back in. Oh, okay. And then camera. Let's go, Nathan. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Caller.
Yeah.
What is your name and where are you from?
Oh, my name's Nathan Crawford. I'm from Alabama. So, yeah, I'm glad to be on. I just hopped on Twitch to see you guys doing this, and I just think it's cool. I like to poke my head in. Ever since Flesh and Blood got added as a category on Twitch, I just like to poke my head in and like see what people are doing, and this is just awesome.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate that. I'm super enjoying that as well. Now, if only they could set it as a game that you can put in the description of your YouTube videos. Like, set this as the game playing in the video.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But what are we gonna do? What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my hot take is that board state decks do not belong in Flesh and Blood, and basically that's just me calling out illusionists. Basically, that's kind of and the basis for that is
Yeah. Explain it for us. Explain it for us.
Yeah. So
Break it
the
down.
basis is a lot of it just has to do with action point economy. Obviously, they've kind of throttled back on that a lot in the most recent sets, and they've basically made it where certain heroes and class combinations just do not have access to action points. And so it's okay to have bad matchups in certain card games, but at the same time, it's like it's a worse feels bad than just a normal bad matchup, right? Because you just feel hopeless, right? Like if an Arachne or an Azuri runs into a Dromar or a Prism, I mean, it just like that's beyond a bad matchup. It feels like two decks were designed in two different games and they're trying to mash together and it just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Okay, real
Like
quick,
Golden Prism.
Kevin, do you mostly agree or disagree with this? Because I want to cover the disagree side if you want to buff it up a little more before I talk about it.
I don't
But then
know.
let me disagree, and then you play gray area.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question. I have a couple of questions for you, Nathan.
All right.
Is a rune chant a board state card?
I guess technically by definition would it be a board state card, yes. Because it's not interactable with.
Okay, and then also, so it is. Does it feel like one?
It does not.
Okay, I have another one. Is a 4 how do I word this? Is a 4 resource for 6 damage hammer a board state card?
No.
Oh, okay. It's not.
Interesting.
It's not. It is sitting on the board, and they can't remove it.
Well, okay. I see what you're saying. I see the
Okay.
comparison, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess it's the fact that a hero doesn't have to be designed a certain way or have access to certain tools to deal with said hammer.
Okay. I have another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beside me, right now, I'll bring it on screen. Beside me is 40 pieces of cardboard in plastic.
Yep.
Is this a board state?
No.
It represents how likely I am to be fatigued by being a secondary resource system. Is this a part of, let's say we're playing CC and I decided to put 72 of these as opposed to 60. Is that a board state? Oh, I dropped a chivalry.
You could define it as that, but
it doesn't feel like
interact
it,
with. Right, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Same rule with the rune chant, right? Like rune chants sit there and you can't interact with them, but like they're not inherently powerful enough to really care.
Okay.
So
now you say you can't interact with them.
I'm gonna
imagine one more thing. Imagine I'm Bravo, your Prism. It's turn 40, and there's 30 ores on the field. I cannot interact with at least 26 of them.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. All I'm doing is devil advocating right now.
Sure.
I only kind of agree with you, and I also agree with myself. But I'd like to hear the gray area take.
So this is probably like the ultimate design question for Flesh and Blood. Is can you have a deck that has permanents that they play from hand onto the board that get recurring value. Because you can have decks that have discrete value permanents like Rune Chance. It is 1 value, they've generated that value, and they're going to get 1 out of it. Or Looming Doom changes the math or whatever, but it's still a discrete amount of value. And Illusionist is the thing that tries to break that with, it's an aura that's a weapon that you can attack with. It is so...
And Warrior.
And...
Kasai.
Sure. Like, yeah. Like
that's gonna matter. That's gonna matter. You don't have go again. I have 4 damage. I can't split it across 2 bodyguards.
Yes. Like allies are the thing they're trying to do now instead of the auras, and they're trying to have a deck that can use these recurring value permanents and how they figure it out. And like they went from auras with Prism to dragons with Dromai to new Prism with angels. And now they're going to have Kasai with her army. So I'm going to say that these decks can have a place in Flesh and Blood. I will say they are probably the hardest decks to balance.
Interestingly,
and they are the most likely to break the game.
You say they have a place in the game, and we also talked about earlier how the metagame often is described as a triangle. And in one of those respects, in one of the metas we've had, Prism was an entire corner of the triangle. It was Prism here, Guardians here, and you say Runeblades, but it's actually just every other deck here. Runeblade was the best at it at the time.
It's the aggro decks. It's the decks that could deal with the board state decks. Because like I said it the other way, where it was aggro decks, anti-Guardian decks, and Guardian decks. It was aggro decks, permanent decks, decks that couldn't deal with permanent decks.
True.
Is the other way to look at that triangle.
Yeah.
So I understand like the way that Flesh and Blood is designed, it is like on the surface, it looks just like turn to turn numbers game. And permanents break that. They fundamentally break that. Like, so I understand that idea. I think you can have Flesh and Blood as a game with that idea still existing, where you have a board state or a permanent base deck.
Right. I think with the way that the design is headed in the most recent sets. I mean, let's look at like New Prism for a second, right?
Yep.
They basically said that Spectra is like no more. They're never going to do it again, and they're not going to ban like all the reoccurring cards. They're just going to make them so bad to where it's not advantageous to really maximize on that strategy, which they accomplished. And so what they did this time was they said, okay, we're going to make angels, which are permanents. But we're going to give them ward. So if I deal 1 point of damage to you, boom, they're gone, right?
Yes.
So therefore, it doesn't require a deck to have absolute action point economy to have or stand a chance, basically. They can just go tall and present a situation, have evasion, however you want to call it.
Okay.
They also had the other side of that, where it costs 2 to attack with each angel. And it costs 2 to give it go again. So they covered the other side of it as well on the offense, where you can't go infinite on it.
You said they basically nerfed him to the point where it's just not a viable strategy. Is that how you kind of worded it a second ago?
Just for Spectra. For Spectra.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's okay. So you bring up board state decks don't belong in Flesh and Blood. But also, we're going to talk about what's his name in chat again? What's his name? Rev? Lucas. What did Lucas say?
Dash with items. Is that a board state deck?
That was the board state deck. That was the
board state deck.
Even more so than Viserai.
That is a board state deck, but the board state is part of the mechanic of the hero becoming more powerful over the fruition of the game, basically, and kind of building in power level. Whereas,
you need to like put them on the field in order.
Right. You have to pay that cost. Whereas, like, take Dromai for example, you can just throw them up off of one hand, especially so with like Tome, and just they're there until you deal with them.
So
right? They're
yes.
constantly attacking you, and there's
So
a low
is-
investment cost relatively.
what was it a high investment cost for Prism to play 3 cards to put 1 permanent on the field?
It was, but that heavy investment cost was refunded when you got to attack with it for free every single turn.
As
Oh.
well as Spectra eating your opponent's action point.
Right.
So is there a place for board state decks given there is enough drawback to the board state? Like, is there a hypothetical perfect world where it's like the board state rides the line between I'm dead because I tried to build a board state and I built the board state and now you lose, but only just by it was close, you know? Is there a line where that is?
I think New Prism is exactly where that line is. I think that they incorporated the ward mechanic and said, okay, if you want to handle that issue by going over, you have that option. If Prism wants to play inefficiently and run a bunch of auras that have Spectra, she'll pay for it that way by having to maintain 4 blues in hand to swing 4 times, right? So I think they solved the problem. The problem just is the fact that Dromai still exists and her ability to just kind of, because like it feels natural and it feels balanced in like the Bravo versus Dromai matchup. It feels like they spent a lot of time designing that matchup, saying, okay, Bravo doesn't have action points and he can pop everything. So like let's make this like situation where they're both fighting for different situations to occur, and that's like a very flavorful matchup that feels like it was worked on a lot.
I think New Prism feels that way too, right? Like,
it does.
The Angels are
absolutely.
exactly 4 health, and I mean it just man, these guys make good games. Go ahead.
But then you throw like Arachne into Dromai, and it's just like
okay,
or Azuri. I mean, we can even name like a lot more. Teklevossen into Dromai. I mean, Bolton to some extent. Riptide. I mean, there's just so many of these heroes that just do not have the toolkit to compete in any way with that deck.
Yes, I agree, but I think that doesn't necessarily mean that there shouldn't be permanent base decks in Flesh and Blood.
Sure, I guess the correct way to word it would be to the point to where Dromai is, where she can just extract infinite value from it.
Yes.
The way you put it there was like really made it good.
I'm going to ask you for the 3rd time for his name. Was it Lucas?
Yeah.
Okay, Lucas. Yeah, I am that forgetful. I'm going to spin a take that he said the opposite direction, which was, so you said that, so we're talking about Dromai being a bit oppressive, especially to outside of the meta decks, and that permanent decks need a bit of a downside. How absolutely dog water is Dromai if dragons block for 0?
I think you don't see it.
You can't have big dragon Dromai at that point, right? Like that just can't exist.
I'm actually not sure, because that was my first initial thought as well.
Yeah.
But the whole purpose of big dragon then becomes to augment your block values to where you can play those dragons out. Whereas then you still have the red line decks that are doing just what they do, but they just don't block.
You're not holding on to. You're not putting every dragon into your deck. You're just putting the dragons you need into your deck, and then cards that block.
I think
you put Cinepies in the deck.
Maybe
they block 3.
Actually, maybe yes. Like,
wait.
I think
maybe.
I think you run.
Maybe
you probably fully cut the 3-cost dragons at that point. You probably cut Dominia entirely, and Tumultai is like entirely matchup specific. I think that deck does get significantly weaker. That being said, if Dromai's always blocking with her dragons anyways, she's gonna have a hard time.
True.
So like,
I don't know. As Arachne, your job is to push more damage than you're pushing. Do better.
I think Arachne will still have a very hard time in that matchup because he can't force the blocks.
True.
Anyways at the moment, and then Dromai still just plays out dragons and then he can't deal with it.
Arachne's a bad example because he's a mill deck in a meta that doesn't matter right now about that.
Yes.
Or in most metas, I assume. But I guess Azuri being a better example as a tempo deck, she might not make Dromai feel pressured enough to actually need to block, which is what the tempo decks want, is to slow your opponent down to your level.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
will
That's
say
really interesting.
The matchup that actually swings the most, I think, might legitimately be the Bolton matchup.
Oh, that one just goes boom to the other
Because
side, right?
suddenly every card you're blocking with is either an attack action, which Bolton loves, or a
True.
D-react, which means you have loaded your deck up with D-reacts, which means you're a lot slower. So, like, I actually
good.
think that matchup is the one that would be the most affected by that change. And
Yeah. Still probably
that would be an interesting change.
sucks for Arachne.
You still
maybe
have
Riptide.
the core mechanic. Yes, you still have the core mechanics that are going to keep decks down that have low access to action points, low power weapons, like the assassins who have 2-cost daggers for 1. Like, that is fundamentally their problem. And like, we look at the new dagger that's going to be able to come in for 2. Seems pretty good.
I've got a new counterpoint.
Okay.
We keep talking about this meta triangle. I love the concept of it. It's so clean.
Yeah.
Is the board state decks good in the meta because they are a part of that triangle? And I guess what I mean by that is, let's say all matchups were 90-10s, you would still want a triangle. That way, there is a the meta feels bad that way, but it's like
make them
60-40s. 60-40s, sure, but it's like,
because if they're 90-10s, the game is unplayable.
Yeah, the game's unplayable. The game's Gwent. So like the point is like the point is like, I guess I can't figure out how to like having.
So if there's no board state decks, okay.
What is the other side of the triangle if it's not a board state deck? And then at that point, it's aggro decks versus fatigue decks. Who runs a better number first, I guess?
Well, mid-range would fill that gap, right?
I don't know
mid-range
if
in general.
Mid-range is aggro. I don't.
So
it's temporary aggro.
Because aggro is just numbers, and then mid-range is just numbers, but sometimes the numbers are better when I block with it, right? So like
exactly. Yep.
So aggro is mid-range, whereas Guardians, which is kind of like tempo, is like it's numbers, but my opponent has to weigh whether or not their blocking numbers are as good as their aggressive numbers. Like, it's control through making your opponent have to do things versus aggro versus board state. But I don't know what. There couldn't be another point to the triangle. I can't think of another. I'm sure there is, but I can't think of another point to the triangle other than
a fundamental
other than
design
mill.
Thing. It's a fundamental design thing for Flesh and Blood where you need decks that break the math of turn-to-turn value.
Is mill a board state deck?
Not in the same sense, but
I think I figured
it out. It's attacking.
Oh,
it is attacking
Mill?
different
I figured
axes.
Mill is a board state. Arachne is in the same corner as Dromai, and when Dromai LLs, Arachne will fill that void.
No shot.
So it's Flesh and Blood. The way it's designed, you need decks that break the numbers, because if you can't break the numbers of turn-to-turn value, everything becomes aggro/mid-range soup, and it's literally just what deck does better number. It doesn't matter. Like, you need on-hits. You need Spinal Crush, which is numerically inefficient, but then has a relevant on-hit for choices to be made. You need you need some sort of active disruption like Ice or Azalea or
you need a creature on the field that says I gain 4 life, or I have a turn-by-turn weapon, right? So I gain the health of whatever this hammer throw is, or I just get turn-over-turn value.
Yes. You need something that breaks the fundamental math of turn cycle to turn cycle play, because if you don't have that, or deck value play even, just like maximizing the value per card from your deck, you need stuff that breaks that, because otherwise the game becomes pure numbers and there's no interesting choices to be made.
Okay, what were you saying, Nathan? Did you have another point?
I agree with what Kevin was saying. I mean, basically, you do. I could see a situation where the third part of the triangle is kind of aggro, but where you extract a lot of your value via on hits. So you'd have like
Katsu.
traditional aggro where it's just like raw numbers, right? And
Yep.
then you have like one that like kind of picks on that where it's like, okay, I'm gonna also be aggro, but I'm gonna leverage my value via on hits, which the other aggro wouldn't want to, which is going
Sure.
to be strictly worse into the Guardian
Yes.
because they actively want to block and take exchanges and present on hits, which
So
are
the
gonna present a
triangle,
problem.
the triangle ends up being aggro, tempo, fatigue.
Basically.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's Azalea, Bravo, Phi.
Yes.
Basically.
Except
100%.
yeah, because Bravo blocks out Azalea.
Mhm.
Azalea slows down Phi. Phi outruns Bravo's blocks.
Right.
So
Yes.
in theory, I mean, obviously
yeah.
decks play out the way decks play out, but you know.
Yeah. No, like it's yeah, there has to be something that breaks the math. And if their solution is a permanent base deck where you can get recurring value from those permanents, I think that has a place in Flesh and Blood. I think it is the hardest thing for them to balance. And I think we've seen evidence of that being the hardest thing for them to balance. And I think it has a place though. So
Sure.
So do you still think board state decks don't belong in Flesh and Blood?
I guess I don't. I think that the version that they come in with Dromai and Old Prism, I think those don't belong.
Yes.
But I think
agree
everything
with that.
past then, like New Prism and stuff like that, is perfectly fine. Even could use like maybe a little power bump as well.
We're gonna see it. According to Fino, we're gonna see it. It's coming.
Yeah.
It's on the horizon.
We'll see.
We'll talk about it next week, right? I don't actually know when he's releasing this.
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna
Like our
shout out.
Patreon or Kevin's Twitch stream?
Well, yeah, I mean, like if you want to watch the best stream in Flesh and Blood, you're gonna go over to Kevin, right? It's just a fact. But if you want something a little,
name is Twitch stream by name. Say it by name.
it's the Smurf thing, right? What is it? Oh, yeah, I remember part of it. So if you want the high quality stuff, go to him. But if you want some lower quality stuff, I do something on Wednesday. So check that out. And but yeah, thank you guys for doing this. It's like really cool.
Just
it's
as
something
quality.
unique. Yeah, yeah. This is
Well,
like
thank
really
you.
good stuff. Really
Thank
good
you,
stuff.
thank you.
It's
We
unique.
appreciate
It's
it.
unique. That's the important part.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time. Tuesdays, we're going to try to do it weekly Tuesdays. Thank you so much for being here.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Peace.
All right, Kevin, anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to talk about? Any opinions you have? Do you want to talk about our feelings?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. All right.
That's what I got this for.
Then I think that wraps it up. Kevin, where can people find you? What are your shout outs?
You can find me on Twitter at SmurphFab, on Twitch at SirSmurphington. Tomorrow I should be on watching Realm Rumble and doing analysis for it.
You can do draft analysis?
Yes, even though Bright Lights isn't going to be drafted anymore.
Oh, no, yes it is. It will in 5 years after I bought a box, and then I need to draft it later.
True.
And
When
then
that box is $35?
Yes, when that box is $35, just like Tails.
Tails Unlimited?
Tails is in some places, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be on next week. Bye.